Etam munistu pamaredya vashtito Vijnana drigvirya suranditashaya Saparshinanapidya gudam tato nilam Sanesha satsunnamaya jitaklama
Itam munistu paramedyavastito
pamaredvyavashtito
Vijnana drigvirya surandhitashaya
Vijnana drigvirya suranditashaya
Svaparshninapidya gudam tato nilam
Suparshina pidya gudam tato nilam
Staneshu satsunnamaya jitaklamaha
Staneshu satsunnamaya jitaklama. Itam munistu pamaredvyavashtito Vijnana drigvirya suranditashaya Suparshina pidya gudam tato nilam Staneshu satsunnamaya jitaklama. Itam, thus by Brahman realization, Muni, the philosopher, to, but, Uparamet, should retire, Vyavastita, well situated, Vijnanadrik, by scientific knowledge, Virya, strength, Surandita, well regulated, Ashaya, aim of life, Svaparshnina, with the heel of one's foot, Apidya, by blocking, Gudam, the air hole, Tata, thereafter, Anilam, life air, Staneshu, in the places, Satsu, six primary, Unnamayet, must be lifted, Jitaklama, by extinguishing material desires. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the six primary places. Purport. There are many Duratmas who claim to have realized themselves as Brahman and yet are unable to conquer material desires. In the Bhagavad Gita 1854, it is clearly explained that an absolutely self-realized soul becomes completely aloof from all material desires. Material desires are based on the false ego of the living being and are exhibited by his childish and useless activities to conquer the laws of material nature and by his desire to lord it over the resources of the five elements. With such a mentality, one is led to believe in the strength of material science with its discovery of atomic energy and space travel by mechanical vehicles. And by such tiny advancements in material science, the false egoist tries to challenge even the strength of the Supreme Lord, who can finish all man's tiny endeavors in less than a second. The well-situated self, or Brahman-realized soul, perfectly understands that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is the all-powerful Vasudeva, and that he, the self-realized living being, is a part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. As such, his constitutional position is to cooperate with him in all respects in the transcendental relation of the served and the servitor. Such a self-realized soul ceases to exhibit his useless activities of attempting to lord it over material nature. Being scientifically well informed, he fully engages himself in faithful devotion to the Lord. The expert yogi who has thoroughly practiced the control of the life air by the prescribed method of the yoga system is advised to quit the body as follows. He should plug up the evacuating hole with the heel of the foot and then progressively move the life air on and on to 6 places: the navel, abdomen, heart, chest, palate, eyebrows, and cerebral pit. Controlling the life air by the prescribed yogic process is mechanical, and the practice is more or less a physical endeavor for spiritual perfection. In olden days, such practice was very common for the transcendentalists, for the mode of life and character in those days were favorable. But in modern days, when the influence of Kali age is so disturbing, practically everyone is untrained in this art of bodily exercise. Concentration of the mind is more easily attained in these days by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The results are more effective than those derived from the inner exercise of the life air. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lam gayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurun dinatarinam paramananda madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. In the modern day, people have no faith in the scriptures. They have a lot of faith in material science. And they're indoctrinated in this way. They go through the educational system and they're taught that the scriptures are just some belief system. It's just some belief system. Much of that belief system is irrational. It's not a reasonable view of life. And typically, they'll cite the Abrahamic scriptures, the Judeo-Christian tradition, and their ideas about the creation of the universe. Like many Christians, they would believe that the universe was created when? When was life? 6,000 or 6,500 years ago. So people, oh, really? Oh, I would believe such a thing. No sensible person would believe such a thing. So they said, this is just silly ideas. And then the modern scientists come with all of their, technology and with their jargon and with their so-called scientific evidence, and they present an alternative view of life. The world originated through the Big Bang, and then through the process of evolution, all of life has arrived in its present state. And people accept this. People are indoctrinated in this way, and therefore people have tremendous faith in modern science. and they look at all the achievements of modern science. But how much has modern science, the achievements, the advancements, how much has it improved people's state of existence? Well, in some ways, it's given us a lot of comforts, a lot of conveniences, but in terms of people's mental well-being, it hasn't done so much. Yes? The world is not in a great state, despite all the advancements of science. And even the technologies which have been developed in the last, what are we talking about? 25, 30 years. 1994, someone came up to me and said, there's this new thing called email. I said, what's email? I think it was 1996, something like that, 95. It says, you can just write a letter on your computer and you can send it and someone can receive it instantly. And that was like a magical thing. Wow, amazing. So since that time, so much technology has been developed. And how much has it benefited human society? Well, it's given benefit to people who know how to use the technology. Just like the Vaishnavas who are in a state of sense control, in a state of understanding how to utilize technology, they can get tremendous benefit. We have access now to things we would never have had access to previously. Just like previously we wanted to hear Prabhupada's lectures, so we walk around with these boxes of Prabhupada's tapes, and you could listen to the tapes one after the other, but you didn't have access to other people's talks so easily. Nowadays, a devotee, if they are disciplined, has access to unlimited, really unlimited Krishna Katha in the form of audiobooks, in the form of podcasts, in the form of lectures, in the form of bhajans. Anything you want, we have access to based on our present state of mind. Right now, I'm not in the state of mind to hear some heavy philosophy, some big talk about tattva. I'm more inclined just to hear some stories about Krishna. That's available. So whatever phase the mind is in, because the mind has its different tastes and different tendencies and different inclinations. So those inclinations can be satisfied in Krishna consciousness. But technology is like a sharp razor. The razor can give you a nice shave, or it can cause bloody havoc. So that's typically what's happening in modern life, is that all of that technology is causing havoc because people don't have the capacity to utilize the technology. I think recently, probably 6 months ago, less than a year ago, Australia banned social media for kids under, what was it, 16 years old, 17 years old, 16, 17. If you're under 17, Australia, I mean, that's a liberal country. That's a country that values free speech, and that they just thought this is so destructive, so incredibly destructive to our youth. All the scientific studies show they just banned social media for kids under 17 because kids were just being devastated by it. It's a surprise that anyone comes out alive, anyone comes out in one piece. So people have access now to the poison of the world, yeah, at their fingertips. Previously, if people wanted to poison their minds or they had to do something. You had to go out and do something, and poison yourself. But now it's all available, tip of your fingers. So this is the advancement of modern science without upliftment of consciousness, right? So all of these things are tools, but without higher consciousness, these tools tend to backfire. They tend to explode in people's faces. So all of this advancement of technology, all of this intelligence is misdirected intelligence. Misdirected intelligence. Just like you meet sometimes people, we're here next to some very prominent universities. And in these universities, people are studying different fields, really sharp people. And they tend to get recruited by certain types of corporations. Yeah, sometimes they're recruited by the weapons industry. Okay, you've been trained along these particular lines. They might get recruited by the weapons industry. And now you're going to help us develop the new phases of weapon technology. What use is that? Already, the world is full of expertise in killing people, yes? The expertise is there, how to pinpoint and kill people on a mass scale. And so now that technology is even being developed to a greater degree. So by and large, without higher consciousness, without purity, all of these technologies are not only useless, they're detrimental, positively detrimental. And people are just being bamboozled into thinking, oh yes, so much advancement is being made. Just like the space exploration, right? This is considered to be a great accomplishment. What's the saying? That phrase, a small step for man. That guy supposedly jumped off the spaceship, right? It had landed on the moon, or at least on some body, some place. It wasn't the moon that's described in the scriptures, but landed someplace, and he jumped out of the spaceship onto the planet. One small step for man, one great leap for mankind. So we're here, and we're 7 people. Can anyone please describe what great benefits human beings were blessed with, or the planet was blessed with, by that space exploration, by that landing on the moon? I'm not so informed. I really can say I'm not so informed. Can anyone please describe the tremendous benefits that human beings have gained, or the planet has gained, by that space exploration or by landing on the moon? Can anyone cite any great thing that's happened?
Well, we got to see how much people cheat.
Yes, we did discover. Yes, we discovered this.
We got a lot of nectar from Prabhupada's books, and what you spoke about it.
We got that. We got some rocks, maybe. Yes, that was a very expensive rocks. Yeah, so all of this space exploration is, when it's being lauded as a great progress and a great achievement, and it's important that we're expanding our understanding of things. Expanding our understanding of what? So who cares that you explored this planet or that planet? What benefit did anyone gain? Meanwhile, on Earth, everything is falling apart at a very rapid pace. So Prabhupada dismisses all of this so-called progress. He dismisses it very handily. Human life is meant for something totally different. And here what's being described is someone who has clear intelligence, and their clear intelligence has led them to the conclusion that this is not the place for the soul, that human life has only one purpose. The only purpose of human life is how to become free from this material bondage, from the material existence, which, as we've all noticed, is highly troublesome. Yes? Anyone who's been around long enough notices, oh, this is extremely troublesome, very tiring. And it's not that it's troublesome with some great fruit in the end. Prabhupada was once being interviewed, and the interviewer said, you people are sometimes accused of escaping, being escapists, yeah? They see that everyone in the world is working diligently, going to their 9-to-5 jobs, putting in their effort, being dutiful, taking care of business. And then they look at the Hare Krishnas, at least in those days when it was an ashram-based tradition. They see a bunch of people in orange robes, and what are they doing day and night? Especially in the beginning days, going out on the street, chanting Hare Krishna, singing and dancing for 6-8 hours a day, and distributing some magazines, and collecting some little bit of funds, and then going back to the temple, eating a little, and then going back out again. And the people, what is this? What kind of life is this? What are you contributing to society? So the reporter said, you are sometimes accused of escapism. And Prabhupada's answer was, Prabhupada was just so brilliant. He said, yes, we are escaping your fruitless endeavor. This was Prabhupada's response. So all of that energy, parabhavastavad abodha jato yavanna jigyasata atma tattvam. If a human being doesn't seriously inquire about the goal of life and come to an understanding of the goal of life, that the goal of life is to liberate myself from this material condition. If a human being doesn't follow that path, parabhava is defeated. It's just a defeat. No one wants to admit that. No one wants to accept that. Who wants to accept that I went through all of that endeavor? I educated myself. I became highly qualified. I was appreciated in society. Oh, this person has gained so much knowledge. They are an authority in this field or that field. People are authorities in different fields, yes? They're studying some remote tribe in this part of the world, or they're the foremost expert on how plants grow, or they're the foremost expert on any number of fields, isn't it? Any number of fields. They become the foremost experts, or they become very accomplished in making money. And because it's Kali Yuga, the people who are very accomplished in making money, oh, they're very appreciated. And everyone, what does this person have to say? So-and-so billionaire said this. But in the Vedic culture, these people were not lauded as being the people to go to be interviewed. It's not that in the Vedic culture, people would go up to the Vaishyas and say, what's your opinion about this or that or the other thing? No, they would go to the Brahmins, the people who had spiritual knowledge. And the Kshatriyas were practically on a similar level as the Brahmins, but they had some passion. So they had to be directed by the Brahmins because sometimes their passion would cover their intelligence, but they had a clear understanding of life. So the Brahmins were glorified, appreciated, the sadhus and the Kshatriyas were appreciated. And the Vaishyas, their contribution was appreciated, but it's not that they would go, what is your view? What is your opinion? And then if you hear someone who's really like a Vaishya, who just has that money and his opinion is asked, sometimes we have functions at our temples and we're obliged that someone has contributed a lot of money and based on their contribution, their valuable service, their valuable contribution, they're invited to come up and speak something. And so everyone's listening very attentively. This is a multi-millionaire or a billionaire. They must, and then if you hear what they have to speak, unless it's really a good devotee, someone who's imbibed Prabhupada's teachings or imbibed Shastric understanding, they usually don't speak so wonderfully. They speak in a way which is okay, but not usually so clear and convincing and aligned with higher understanding. But because it's Kali Yuga, they're very much appreciated. The Vaishyas are so much appreciated. And who else is appreciated in Kali Yuga? The Shudras. They're glorified like anything. They're praised. They're worshipped practically. Yes? Why? Because they're able to kick a ball or throw a ball or beat the heck out of someone. One is glorifying them, appreciating them like anything. So this is the topsy-turvy, upside-down nature of the Kali Yuga. Everything is upside down. And Prabhupada's books are meant to turn things right side up, at least help some people to come to a clear understanding of life. That if people can just grasp this most fundamental ideas in Prabhupada's books, you're not the body, you're a soul. And this is the realm of matter. And there's zero possibility of becoming happy as a soul through the enjoyment of matter. That's a huge thing. That's a huge realization. And to follow through with that realization, that's not easy because the conditioned nature is so strong. The soul has become so habituated, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, habituated that this is how I become happy, through the enjoyment of the senses. I was just reading this quote in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada is stating that normally we think, yes, someone who's not so advanced, someone who's not so developed, then they're going to have trouble with resisting the temptations of Prabhupada says, even stalwarts in the devotional line, they become sometimes sidetracked by two things. What are the things Prabhupada mentions?
Money and sex.
That's it. Money and sex. These things, these allurements are so strong, are so deep-rooted. With money, then I will be able to enjoy. I have money, and therefore the world is at my fingertips. It's a very dangerous thing. Very dangerous thing to have a lot of wealth. Therefore, in the Vedic culture, in Indian culture, sometimes you have examples of someone who's a prince, yeah? A prince. And princes are, those are the guys with full facility for enjoyment. And the prince renounces. Well, that's something that's very much appreciated. This person had full facility, had access to all the temptations of life, and they became a renunciant. They rejected it all because they fell in love with Krishna. Wow, that's something impressive. So all of these material facilities, it's regarded by people in certain religious traditions as the grace of God, the blessing of God. And even there's preachers who propagate this idea that if you pray to God, if you're in God's good books, this is evidence that you're in God's good books. That what? Oh, you'll have a nice house, a nice car, a nice spouse, a nice bank balance. This is evidence that you're in God's good books. So therefore, you have to work for those things, and you have to pray to God for those things. And certainly, if you're blessed, and so people don't have those things, think, I'm not getting God's grace. But our understanding is different. Our understanding is that if God is kind to you, then maybe he's going to spare you of those things until you're qualified to handle them. Yes? A pure devotee is qualified to handle all the wealth of the world. All the wealth of the world and not be sidetracked. But everyone else, it can be a very risky thing to have too much material facility. So Krishna, typically, he'll keep his devotees in a more humble state of life materially, so that they don't become too much sidetracked. So here, a different process of self-realization is being described. And we were just reading in the first canto about Maharaj Yudhisthira, Emperor of the world. Emperor of the world. That's, you're the boss. Everyone is glorifying you. Forget about all the citizens. All the other kings have paid homage to you. You are the ruler of the entire planet. So full facility. And he renounced it. He found out that Krishna left. Arjuna came back. His face was pale. The life he looked so despondent. And Yudhisthira began inquiring from Arjuna what happened. He asked so many questions. And finally, the only conclusion was that his dear friend Krishna had departed the planet. And therefore Maharaj Yudhisthira understood, now it's time to wind up all this business. Turn over the kingdom to my predecessor, to the next person in charge, Maharaj Parikshit, isn't it? And so he went through the process, the mechanical process. And if you read the process, like, I'm reading it, I have no idea what this process is, right? Withdrawing all the senses, merging them with the mind, merging the mind with the intelligence with the ego with the Mahatattva. I could maybe repeat what it is, and I wouldn't understand it at all, what that process is. So here, a similar mechanical process is being described, the process of the yogis, right? Where they're sitting in yogic meditation, and now they're going to very mechanically raise the life airs and and then leave their body in a certain mechanical way, meditating on divinity, meditating on the Supreme. So thankfully, mercifully, this is not the process for the Kali Yuga. What is the process for the Kali Yuga? We can say it's the chanting of the holy names. Certainly that's true. But finally, the process for the age of Kali is not only to chant the holy names of the Lord, but to chant the holy names of the Lord as Prabhupada described in the very beginning, He said, one calls out the name of the Lord, just like a child crying out to the mother. That's all. My dear Lord Krishna, friend of all living entities, my best friend, supreme personality of Godhead, I've fallen into this material existence. I'm stuck. I'm helpless. I'm being tossed by the waves of the material world. I'm constantly being attacked by the material senses, by the uncontrolled mind. So we call out to Krishna in that mood of helplessness. And Krishna, he never fails. He's never inattentive in the deliverance of the fallen souls. Prabhupada explains that it's not that Krishna only becomes attentive when we're calling out to him. Krishna is attentive in all circumstances. He's always attentive in the process of delivering the souls. This is one of his pastimes, one of his most exalted pastimes. His children have fallen into this material existence, Daivihi Esha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Duratyaya. This insurpassable ocean of material existence. And Krishna's Leela is to deliver us from this ocean of material existence. And our business is to always remain in a mood of utter dependence on the Lord. And there's a certain activity which really helps in, it forces us to be in a mood of utter dependence on the Lord. It's an activity which Prabhupada gave to us, which is distributing his books. Because what are we distributing? We're distributing books about how to surrender to God. Yes. Sometimes I read the books, and I'm thinking, okay, how would the people that I'm distributing the books, how would they be able to process this? And I think, oh, they're going to have a really tough time processing this, because it's the diametric opposite of everything they stand for. By and large, yeah? The conditioned soul has come to this world with the idea that I'm God. And if there is God, God's role is my order supplier. I'm not the servant of God. God is my servant. I pray to God. God gives me stuff and I enjoy it. I'm the enjoyer and God's the servant. Yes? Otherwise, what are people doing? They're going to God and saying, give me this, give me that, give me this. Make my life smooth, make my life peaceful. Please arrange everything that it's to my, that suits my desires. So I'm the enjoyer and God is the servant. Yes? I'm not the center. So Prabhupada's books are teaching the exact opposite. So we're selling a product that, at least superficially, I'm not talking about the deepest level, superficially, no one's interested. Yes, because it's the opposite of material life. So we need a lot of help. It's not like, hey, I've got a product, and if you say, hey, I'd like one of those, give me one of those. That looks like it's something which is going to gratify one of the desires in the field of my mind. No, it's not. It doesn't gratify any of the desires that are in the material mind. So naturally, you go on book distribution, and you need a lot of help, right? My dear Lord Krishna, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but you're Yogeshwara, you're the supreme mystic, so you please help me. And then Krishna helps. Krishna helps. Salesmen used to be shocked, isn't it, Vijay Prabhu? They'd be passing through the airport and they just suddenly sit on the sideline and watch the devotee distributing books. Some young person, 25 years old, confidently approaching all sorts of people from all walks of life, even business people, hardcore business people, calling them over and then having some interaction and then handing them a book. And then the person turns over some money and the business people were shocked. How is this person doing this, And so they'd come up and said, I don't know what you're doing, but would you like a job? I've got a business and, I could use some good salesmen. The devotee says, no, I'm working in a different way. So how is that?
Sometimes devotees take the offer.
Sometimes devotees take the offer. Yeah, so this is an activity which was given by Prabhupada, which puts us in that mood, which is the most ideal mood for a devotee to be in. the mood of utter dependence on Krishna. My dear Lord Krishna, please help me. Help me to do my service. Please help me to serve you. That's a beautiful mood to be in. And that mood is the mood which protects us from all of the attacks of the material world, from all the attacks of the mind and senses. So this activity especially is most favorable for insulating us from the allurements of life, from the pushings of the mind and senses. And it's a great gift of Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Does anyone have any reflections or questions? Prabhu.
So you were talking about how Krishna often keeps his devotees in a humble circumstance, so that they're ready, qualified to take on vast amounts of knowledge, power that can be used properly. But what about like a devotee like Srila Prabhupada? He expressed in his poem how, like, taken away from him and himself, and he feels this is Krishna's conversion on him. But we understand he's pure devotee, he's obviously qualified to have those things. And then you also have devotees like Yudhishthira Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, who also pure devotees, but Krishna was giving them the opposite. So how do you understand?
How do we understand what Krishna is doing with any particular devotee? Well, Bhishma Dev gave the answer. No one can understand how Krishna is dealing with each specific living entity. But certainly, in the case of Prabhupada, Krishna was always arranging for Prabhupada's glorification. That Prabhupada was every step of the way. Prabhupada, of course, is under the direct control, direct mercy of Krishna. And so why did Krishna take away Prabhupada's material facility? Prabhupada took it that, Krishna has taken this away to put me into a state of utter dependence on him, although Prabhupada was already anyway dependent on him. But it also added to Prabhupada's glory. If Prabhupada had become successful when he was in his Grahastha life, and he was predicted by an astrologer to be one of the richest men in India, and Prabhupada's expressed, my plan was I'll make a lot of money, and then with a lot of money, I'll fulfill the order of my spiritual master, right? So Prabhupada, if that had been the trajectory of his life, and he'd made millions of dollars, and he'd flown over to America, and he'd rented some nice facility in America, and he started the movement with that nice facility, and the movement spread in that way, that wouldn't have been as glorious, would it have been? As a person with 40 rupees, not even 40 rupees, he had no rupees, he had no money, $20 because he sold a set of Bhagavatams to the captain of the ship, arriving, struggling like anything with his health, struggling in New York for 1 year, no result. That's a story for the ages. So Krishna, he takes great pleasure in glorifying his devotees. So whatever Krishna is doing in relationship to his pure devotees is for their glorification. It's not for their purification. It's not to help them to come to the right state of consciousness. It's for their glorification. So isn't that a much more glorious story, which will be told for 10,000 years, that this 70-year-old person, and now, I'm 61, and, I'm just starting to appreciate what it means to have an older body. And, you don't want to do much as the body gets older. You certainly don't want to go running around, traveling, at least in my case, and no big adventures. So in every sense, Krishna was arranging for Prabhupada's glorification. And so we can take it that was also part of that glorification process. Vijay Prabhu, anything you'd like to add?
Well, yeah, he took Yashyama Nuganam, he takes everything away, but then Krishna gave him everything. That glory, he came here with nothing, and then Krishna just came. Then my rock that added on to the glory. He had nothing, and Krishna just came.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.